Annapolis, Maryland, May 1945. The ailing physicist, Dr. Robert Goddard, stood motionless in the Naval Laboratory warehouse, his voice already reduced to a hoarse whisper by the throat cancer that would claim him within months. Goddard ran his fingers along the cold aluminum skin of the German V-2 rocket, reflecting on his two-decade-long struggle as America's lone voice in the wilderness of rocketry. Despite building liquid-fueled rockets on shoestring budgets, the government had long ignored his pleas for support. Now, in this dimly lit warehouse, surrounded by Army ordnance officers and Navy engineers, Goddard confronted a truth that would. The German rocket program had sparked a technological revolution that left American rocketry in the dust. Goddard's examination of the captured V-2 missile revealed a gaping chasm in American capabilities, one that would haunt the nation's space efforts for over a decade. The Germans had not merely built a rocket, they had constructed an entire industrial ecosystem for rocketry, leaving their American counterparts struggling to catch up. The V-2 represented engineering feats and manufacturing precision that were simply non-existent in the United States at the time. American scientists would spend the next 15 years desperately trying to bridge this technological divide and close the gap. The American forces racing across Germany in the waning days of World War II stumbled upon a revelation that would profoundly alter the course of human history. On April 11, 1945, in the Harz Mountains of Germany, soldiers of the United States 3rd Armored Division discovered a sprawling research complex known as Peenemünde. This facility, with its thousands of scientists and unlimited funding, had given Germany a 7-year head start in the development of weaponized rocket technology, a technological leap that would reshape the future of warfare and space exploration. While America had the pioneering work of Robert Goddard, Germany possessed a rocket sitting in a warehouse, a tangible proof of their significant advantage. Peenemunde's vast resources and expertise had allowed them to outpace the United States in this critical field, a sobering realization that would spur America to intensify its own rocket research and development efforts in the years to come. The story of how America discovered its substantial lag in rocket technology did not begin in 1945, but rather several years earlier, as the race for rocketry supremacy intensified on the global stage. The Allied forces stumbled upon an astonishing industrial complex near Nordhausen, deep within the heart of the German territory. Expecting to find another weapons facility, they were confronted with a staggering operation that defied all comprehension. Tunnels carved into the mountains stretched for miles, housing production lines with partially assembled V-2 rockets at various stages of completion. Warehouses brimmed with components, while technical documents were stacked in rooms, all evidence of the forced labor employed to construct Hitler's vengeance weapons. Major James Hamel of the Army Ordnance, as he traversed those tunnels, was overcome with growing disbelief at the scale and magnitude of the German industrial might. The underground manufacturing complex was churning out V-2 missiles at an astounding rate of 600 units per month. Each rocket required an intricate assembly of 50,000 individual parts, showcasing the meticulous precision machining, rigorous quality control, and complex logistical operations that sustained these production lines. This industrial feat seemed improbable for a nation on the verge of defeat. However, Hamel grasped a crucial insight that evaded the infantry. These were not merely weapons, but the gateway to a pivotal future. With the Soviet occupation zone set to commence in a matter of weeks, every document, component, and rocket within the facility risked falling into Stalin's hands. Time was of the essence for the Americans to act swiftly. Colonel Holgard Tuftoy was urgently summoned from Washington with a critical directive: retrieve the rockets and documents before the Soviets could seize them. This marked the beginning of Special Mission V-2, a pivotal intelligence operation in the war's final days. American troops worked tirelessly, loading 341 railcars with V-2 components and tons of technical documents. This hardware, enough to construct around 100 complete rockets, raced against the clock toward the port of Antwerp, where Liberty ships stood ready to transport America's captured prize across the Atlantic. By late May, the first components had reached the White Sands proving grounds. The Tularosa Basin in New Mexico served as the ground where the Army engineers commenced their meticulous cataloging of the captured German technology. With each crate they opened and each technical drawing they scrutinized, the magnitude of the German engineering prowess became increasingly evident and unsettling. The V-2 rocket, designated Aggregate 4 by its creators, stood tall at 46 feet and weighed nearly 28,000 pounds at launch. Its capability to transport a 1-ton warhead over 200 miles with reasonable precision was undoubtedly impressive. However, the true revelation emerged as American engineers disassembled the rocket to comprehend its inner workings. The engine, situated at the base, was The Germans had developed a massive combustion chamber capable of producing an astounding 60,000 pounds of thrust. This figure was staggering to American engineers familiar with Robert Goddard's work, as his largest rocket engine had only achieved 985 pounds of thrust after years of experimentation. The German engineers had created an engine 60 times more powerful and were mass-producing it. Dr. Theodor von Karman, the director of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory at Caltech, was among the first American scientists to examine the V-2 in detail. His team had been working on rocket technology for the Army since 1942, developing what would become the Corporal missile. When von Karman saw the V-2's propulsion system, the response was blunt and direct. "We were at least 7 years behind in our technological capabilities." The propulsion system alone represented multiple groundbreaking advancements. The combustion chamber utilized a double-wall design, with alcohol fuel flowing through the outer jacket before entering the chamber, simultaneously cooling the walls and preheating the fuel. This regenerative cooling technique solved a fundamental challenge in rocketry, preventing the chamber from melting under the extreme 5,100 degrees Fahrenheit combustion temperatures. However, it was the turbopump that truly astonished American engineers. At the core of every V-2 rocket was a steam-driven turbine, spinning at an astounding 4,000 revolutions per minute, powering The German rocket engineers had developed a remarkable turbopump system that powered the combustion chamber. This device forced fuel and liquid oxygen into the chamber at an astounding rate of 125 liters per second, driven by a 600 horsepower turbine. Remarkably, the pumps were able to handle the cryogenic liquid oxygen at a frigid -297 degrees Fahrenheit, operating under immense pressures that would destroy conventional pumps. American engineers gazed upon this engineering marvel with a blend of admiration and despair, recognizing that it represented 7 years of meticulous German development in metallurgy, precision machining, and innovative engineering solutions that were not yet available in the United States. The turbine blades, forged from nickel-chromium alloys, could withstand the extreme temperatures and rotational forces that would tear apart less robust designs. The German rocket engineers had crafted a remarkable turbopump system that surpassed the capabilities of American technology. Lieutenant Commander Robert Truax, a Navy engineer who examined the V-2's propulsion, noted in his report that replicating this German innovation would necessitate developing entirely new alloys, casting methods, and manufacturing processes. Truax estimated it would take a minimum of 18 months to create even a single working prototype, assuming unlimited funding and access to materials scarce in the post-war era. This German guidance system, however, would prove to be an even greater technological marvel. The German V-2 rocket represented a remarkable technological achievement, far surpassing the capabilities of American missile systems at the time. The V-2 utilized an advanced analog computer, the Mischgerät, developed by Helmut Heltzer, which integrated data from gyroscopes and accelerometers to precisely control the rocket's flight. 2 free gyroscopes, one for pitch and one for yaw and roll, continuously monitored the rocket's orientation, while a pendulous integrating gyroscopic accelerometer measured acceleration and calculated velocity. When the rocket reached its programmed velocity, typically around 3,500 miles per hour, the guidance system would automatically cut off the engine. The sophistication of this guidance system left American engineers in awe. The Chrysler-Jera Corporation produced the 1002 gyroscopes with a level of precision that surpassed the capabilities of American manufacturers. The analog computer system processed multiple inputs in real time, transmitting signals to 8 control surfaces, 4 external rudders on the tail fins, and 4 graphite vanes positioned within the rocket's exhaust stream. These vanes, situated directly in the 5,000 degrees plus temperatures of the rocket's jet, were constructed from graphite that could withstand the intense heat while providing critical steering control during the initial 60 seconds of flight. Dr. Charles Stark Draper, MIT's leading expert in guidance systems, examined the V-2 rocket's controls with professional admiration, having dedicated years of research to this field. The pioneering work of Dr. Draper's laboratory in developing cutting-edge gyroscopic instruments for aircraft and submarines was profoundly impacted when they encountered the German system. Draper's technical assessment revealed that the German engineers had solved the integration problem, creating an accelerometer that could calculate velocity by integrating acceleration over time. A groundbreaking innovation that represented the first fully electronic active control system ever deployed on any vehicle, decades ahead of its time in aviation. The American engineers were particularly struck by the exceptional manufacturing quality of the V-2 components, which showcased precision machining that surpassed even peacetime standards. This stark contrast highlighted the technological gap between the two nations, underscoring the remarkable advancements the German team had achieved. The German engineering team responsible for the turbopump assembly spared no effort in ensuring its flawless execution. Welds were meticulously crafted to perfection, with tolerances measured in the most minute of increments. Components subjected to high-stress conditions were purposefully overbuilt, incorporating safety margins that American designers, constrained by material shortages, would never have specified. An Army ordnance officer, upon examining the assembly, remarked that every component seemed designed to withstand the most extreme scenarios. The Germans had engineered for reliability under combat conditions, incorporating redundancies in the fuel lines that American standards would have deemed excessive. The electrical system boasted more circuit breakers than necessary, and the overall structure was heavier than optimal weight calculations would have required. This level of engineering prowess reflected a nation with the resources to construct equipment with the utmost care and attention to detail, rather than the pragmatic compromises often necessitated by material limitations. The V-2 rocket, a product of German engineering, showcased remarkable sophistication in its electrical system, far exceeding the practices of its American counterparts. Featuring a 24-volt architecture with generators driven by both the main turbopump and a separate auxiliary turbine, the V-2's electrical system was a marvel of engineering. In contrast, American rockets typically employed 12-volt designs with single generators. The V-2's electrical harness, meticulously routed, bundled, and protected, spanned an impressive 8 miles of wiring. This comprehensive system included motor-driven valves, gyroscope power, ignition systems, and telemetry equipment capable of transmitting real-time flight data. When Robert Goddard examined the V-2 that fateful May afternoon in Annapolis, he was confronted with a technological marvel that exemplified the engineering prowess of its German creators. The German engineers had closely mirrored Goddard's pioneering work on liquid-fueled rockets. Utilizing oxygen and alcohol as propellants, turbine-driven centrifugal pumps, gyroscopic stabilization, and blast vanes for steering, the V-2 missile embodied many of the core technical concepts Goddard had previously explored. Bitterly, Goddard wrote to his patron, Harry Guggenheim, lamenting that the Germans had effectively implemented his patented designs on a scale he could never have achieved alone in America. Yet, as Goddard recognized, the Germans had not simply stolen American technology, but had independently developed their own advanced rocketry program. The German rocket program had rapidly advanced by the mid-1940s, surpassing American capabilities by nearly a decade. Paralleling the work of American pioneer Robert Goddard, German scientists like Hermann Oberth had made significant theoretical breakthroughs. Meanwhile, Wernher von Braun's team at Peenemünde had begun liquid-fuel rocket experiments as early as 1932, building on their nation's established rocketry tradition. By 1934, their A-2 rocket had already exceeded Goddard's highest altitude record. Benefiting from state funding, military priority, and access to top technical universities, the German program mobilized thousands of scientists and engineers across disciplines. In contrast, Goddard's highest altitude of 9,000 feet, achieved in 1937, paled in comparison to the A-4 rocket's routine 50-mile flights, which crossed into space before arcing back down. Renowned physicist Robert Goddard toiled in the New Mexico desert, relying on modest funding from the Guggenheim Foundation and facing indifference from the U.S. military. In contrast, the German rocket program at Peenemünde was a sprawling, well-resourced facility, akin to the scale of America's Manhattan Project. Goddard's most powerful engine generated 985 pounds of thrust, while the V-2 rocket engine produced a staggering 60,000 pounds of thrust, demonstrating the vast technological gap between the lone American scientist and Germany's industrial scientific establishment dedicated to military rocketry. As American engineers persisted in their efforts, by June 1945, the German V-2 had already reached its 200-meter target. Careful analysis of the recovered V-2 missiles prompted a consensus within classified War Department reports. The United States faced a critical strategic vulnerability. Rocket technology would define the future of warfare. The Germans had proven the capability of ballistic missiles to strike distant targets without any viable defense. With the Soviet Union's capture of the V-2 production facilities at Peenemünde and thousands of German rocket engineers, America risked falling dangerously behind in this pivotal military technology unless it acted swiftly. This assessment precipitated Operation Paperclip, one of the most contentious decisions of the era. The aftermath of the war saw a pivotal moment in 1945 when Wernher von Braun and 126 German rocket scientists were transported under military escort to Fort Bliss, Texas. These individuals had engineered Hitler's devastating vengeance weapons, often employing forced labor from concentration camps. Their rockets had terrorized London and Antwerp, but their expertise was now coveted by America. This decision sparked moral dilemmas, as these were Nazi scientists, some holding SS ranks, responsible for weapons that claimed thousands of civilian lives. The prisoners who constructed the V-2 rockets at Mittelbau-Dora perished in greater numbers than the casualties inflicted by the missiles themselves, worked to the point of exhaustion in the underground facilities. The dawn of the Cold War era saw the Soviet Union swiftly move to rebuild the German rocket program, capturing a contingent of its engineers. At the White Sands Proving Ground in New Mexico, work commenced on assembling the captured V-2 rockets for test launches. The first static test firing took place on March 15, 1946, followed by the inaugural launch on April 16. As the reassembled German rocket lifted off from the desert at 2:47 p.m., the guidance system failed almost immediately, with a fin separating, and the rocket reaching a mere 3.4-mile altitude before crashing. This humbling demonstration underscored the challenges of working with the reclaimed German technology, even with the expertise of their engineers. The American scientific community had much ground to cover compared to their German counterparts. As Colonel Harold R. Turner observed the initial failed launch, he remarked to his team, "We possess the hardware and the designers, but lack the industrial infrastructure, the experiential foundation, and the knowledge accrued from 6,000 test firings and combat deployments." Indeed, the Germans had conducted an extensive program of trials and live operations. In the ensuing years, 67 reclaimed V-2 rockets were launched from White Sands, with a 68% success rate, a failure margin that would have been unacceptable in actual warfare. Each test launch provided valuable lessons for the American engineers. Scientists and engineers gained valuable lessons from the V-2 rocket program, including insights into rocket propulsion, guidance systems, high-altitude flight dynamics, and the engineering challenges of ballistic missiles. Researchers from universities, military laboratories, and emerging aerospace companies sent a variety of experiments aloft on V-2 rockets, measuring cosmic radiation, photographing Earth from space, and sampling the upper atmosphere. On October 24, 1946, a V-2 rocket carried a 35 mm camera to an altitude of 65 miles, capturing the first ever photographs of Earth from space. These grainy, black and white images showcased the curvature of the planet, representing a historic milestone and demonstrating the technological achievements of the German V-2 program. The ability to send instruments and equipment to such high altitudes opened new avenues for scientific exploration, paving the way for future advancements in space technology and research. The Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama was selected in 1948 by the Army Ordnance Department as a permanent rocket research center. Wernher von Braun and his team, joined by American engineers, relocated there to begin developing missiles based on V-2 technology, but adapted to American requirements and capacities. The Redstone, a direct descendant of the V-2, emerged as the first major American rocket from this collaboration. First tested in 1953, the Redstone incorporated the principles of the V-2, including liquid oxygen propulsion. While the captured German rockets were never the ultimate goal, they served as a bridge to advancing American rocketry. The objective was to leverage this foundation to launch payloads beyond Earth's atmosphere and retrieve useful data. This represented a crucial step towards establishing American dominance in the field of rocketry. The American rocket industry underwent a remarkable transformation in the 1950s. Initially, they had lagged behind German advancements in areas like liquid fuel propellants, turbopump fuel delivery, and gyroscopic guidance. However, American manufacturers quickly adapted their processes to rocket production, incorporating improvements that enhanced fuel efficiency and reliability. By the mid-1950s, the technological gap had narrowed significantly, as American engineers learned from German designs and then surpassed them. The Jupiter, Thor, and Atlas missiles represented indigenous American rocket technology, developed and produced entirely within the United States using domestic materials and techniques. When the Soviet Union launched Sputnik in October 1957, the American response came swiftly. In January 1958, the Explorer I satellite was launched atop a Jupiter-derived rocket, marking a major milestone in the American space program. This paved the way for the development of the powerful Saturn V rocket, which would ultimately enable the historic Apollo moon landings. The mighty Saturn V, the vessel that would ferry astronauts to the lunar surface in 1969, was the brainchild of Wernher von Braun's team at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. Its colossal F-1 engines, each generating 1.5 million pounds of thrust, dwarfed the power of the V-2 by a factor of 25. Yet, the technological lineage was undeniable. Regenerative cooling, turbopump fuel delivery, gimbal-mounted engines for thrust vectoring, and sophisticated guidance systems, all concepts that had been pioneered in the V-2, now scaled and refined to achieve the dreams of Goddard and the possibilities envisioned by the Germans. Viewed from the vantage point of the 21st century, the legacy of the V-2 is complex and troubling. The V-2 rocket, a weapon of terror, achieved little military value despite the immense cost in resources and lives. Its construction by slave labor represented one of the many atrocities of World War II. Yet, this groundbreaking technology laid the foundation for the future of rocketry and space exploration, becoming the world's first practical ballistic missile and the first object to reach space. For American scientists examining the captured V-2s in 1945, the experience was humbling, as a defeated nation had surpassed the United States, with its vast industrial capacity and scientific talent, in this critical field. The pioneering work of Robert Goddard had been overlooked, but the V-2's legacy would shape the course of technological advancement in the years to come. Here is the paraphrased text. The American government invested modestly in rocket technology, while Germany poured substantial resources into developing similar capabilities on a larger scale. This disparity underscored a crucial lesson that would shape U.S. military and scientific policies for many years to come. Achieving technological supremacy requires sustained financial commitment, institutional backing, and recognition that individual brilliance, no matter how exceptional, cannot substitute for a coordinated national endeavor. When the Goddard Space Flight Center was inaugurated in May 1959, Administrator T. Keith Glennon acknowledged both the pioneering American scientist and the uncomfortable truth his career had revealed. Robert Goddard had dreamed of rockets that could reach the moon, but his own creations had only attained an altitude of 9,000 feet. In contrast, the Germans, working independently, had succeeded in building rockets that reached the edge of space. The United States space endeavors today are rooted in both historical legacies and the crucial lessons that genius requires support, vision demands resources, and technological leadership demands national commitment. The captured V-2 rocket in 1945 imparted three pivotal insights to America. Firstly, rocket technology would define military power and enable access to the cosmos. Secondly, technological supremacy can be lost through complacency but regained only through sustained dedication. Thirdly, in the emerging Cold War, the nation commanding the high ground of space and the extended reach of ballistic missiles would hold a strategic edge. As American scientists studied that initial V-2 specimen in May 1945, the American visionaries of the time recognized the stark disparity between the nation's current capabilities and its future potential. They witnessed the groundbreaking German hardware, exemplified by the V-2 rocket, and understood the profound implications it held for the trajectory of their country's technological advancement. Though the Annapolis warehouse where Goddard studied the V-2 has since vanished, the revelatory impact of that encounter would forever alter the course of American history. From that pivotal moment of realization, a resolute drive to bridge the gap and surpass the competition emerged. The investment in rocket science and the eventual accomplishment that would plant American footprints on the lunar surface just 24 years later was a remarkable feat. Germany's V-2 had been a weapon of vengeance, but for America, it became something entirely different, a wake-up call, an educational tool, and a challenge to excel. The fact that Americans ultimately surpassed the German achievements, constructing rockets capable of transporting humans beyond Earth's orbit, demonstrated that technological gaps can indeed be bridged. However, this requires acknowledging the existence of such gaps, dedicating the necessary resources to close them, and recognizing that in the realm of technology, just as in warfare, those who fail to invest in the future will inevitably fall behind. Gazing upon the historic launch of Apollo 11 from Cape Canaveral in July 1969, Wernher von Braun reflected on the remarkable journey from Peenemünde to the tranquil lunar surface. "We always knew it was possible," he remarked, for the physics had been clear since the 1930s. What transformed the dream into reality was not the scientific knowledge, but the unwavering commitment of an entire nation. In contrast to Germany's efforts in 1945, America in 1969 marshaled its resources and resolved to reach beyond Earth, not as an instrument of war, but as a testament to the human spirit's boundless potential. The American engineers' dedication commenced in storage facilities where they meticulously analyzed confiscated German rockets, confronting a sobering reality: they had fallen significantly behind. The critical question now was whether they possessed the unwavering resolve to bridge that gap.